Hey guys, and welcome to today's video where I wanted to do a bit of a different video. Basically, I wanted to do 5 reasons you shouldn't get a leopard gecko, or maybe like 5 reasons a leopard gecko isn't for you. Videos like this do usually get a bit more dislikes than your average upload, and I don't know if it's because just people don't agree with the points or they just don't want to face the realities of owning a leopard gecko. Like, it's very easy when you're researching an animal to only look at all the positives and think, yeah, this fits me, this is definitely what I want, and not look at the things that might slightly put you off. So I do find it to be important to highlight these points. I will say personally I found this list difficult to make because these aren't necessarily cons to me. A lot of these are actually pros of owning a leopard gecko, but to some people they may see these as negative aspects of owning a leopard gecko. So the first reason you shouldn't get a leopard gecko, or the first reason a leopard gecko might not be for you, is they can live a long time. 20 years or more is generally accepted. Now, worryingly, I did see this in one shop, and I did see on an online care sheet from BHB Reptiles that they say leopard geckos only live an average life of 8 to 10 years, I believe, which is definitely untrue. If your geckos are only living 8 to 10 years, then you're doing something seriously wrong. Now, in the pet shop where I saw this, they were actually advertising the females to only live 8 to 10 years. Once again, this is not true. If your gecko isn't being constantly bred with, she should live a nice full life like a male does. It isn't like chameleons where I know males can live maybe up to 7 years, but females only tend to live 2 to 3 years, I believe. It's not like that. There isn't really too much difference in gender to lifespan, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to clear that up in case, you know, someone gets a leopard gecko and expects to own it for a decade at the most. They live far longer, and so to some people this may not be ideal. For me, I love it. I love having the same animals in my life for years and years, but if you're getting a leopard gecko, say you're 13, 14, but in the future you plan to go to college or university, or maybe in your future you want to go travelling and you may be away for like 6 months or a year or even more, then maybe the leopard gecko isn't ideal for you. I know a lot of people get reptiles when they're teenagers and then they realise they want to go to college and they're like, what do I do? That's actually how I got Lyra, my crested gecko. The girl happened to be going to university and she was studying to become a vet, and she couldn't take any of her pets with her, and she actually had to rehome all of them, which is pretty sad. And it's a sad reality, but this is why you have to plan ahead and realise, do you want a gecko for 20 years or more? The second reason would be that you have to feed your gecko insects. Now, this can cause a range of problems because some people really hate insects, they're really scared of insects, they don't want to house them in their house, which, you know, understandable. They don't want to have to look after the insects, they might have this sort of moral dilemma where they don't want to actually feed live insects to their gecko. I find snakes interesting, but the reason I couldn't get one is because I couldn't deal with feeding them rodents, even though they could be, you know, freshly dead ones or whatever, you know, frozen or defrosted, obviously. To me, the sight of a dead rodent triggers too much of an emotional response to be able to do that frequently, especially as I own rodents. I just would find that difficult on a personal level. But, yes, feeding your gecko insects, there's no two ways about it. Leopard geckos need to eat their insects, and the insects need to be fed, aka gut loaded, and so you do end up not only taking on a gecko, but their food. Now, I don't find this particularly taxing at all, but to some people it's just not ideal and they don't want to be dealing with it. The third reason a leopard gecko might not be for you is they sleep a lot. Now, my geckos all live in my bedroom, and during the day it's nice and peaceful. I leave them be. They need to sleep during the day, so they're not a pet that you can just go and feed and hang out with during the day, okay? So that's one big thing. But they are crepuscular, so they're most active dusk and dawn, and I find around this sort of time, around, 6, 7 o'clock onwards, they become a little more active. I will say though, leopard geckos don't necessarily wake up and then they're constantly active. They kind of walk around a bit, sleep, dig a little bit, sleep. When you got food, oh, here's some food, I'll go hunting for the food, then sleep. They're very on-off sort of animals, if that makes sense. So a lot of new owners will message me and go, my gecko keeps sleeping, is this normal? And it's like, yeah, they're not like the most active of reptiles, and sometimes I do wonder if it's just down to the way we heat them. That can have a massive effect. As you've seen in the past, when I have changed Minnie and Ziggy to deep heat projectors, and I would say they're probably more active than Gizmo and Diego, who are on heat mats. It's quite interesting to compare the two, but if you've seen my videos on the deep heat projectors, you know the science behind it and why it gives them far more usable energy. So that could be a big reason they're a little bit sleepy all the time, but in general, they do sleep a lot. So if you want a super active reptile, these probably aren't for you. If you want a reptile you can handle and interact with during the day, then you might want to look for a diurnal reptile, aka reptiles who are awake during the day. Reason 4, slightly similar to the last point, is leopard geckos don't play. And what I mean by this is, if you're used to pets like dogs or cats, maybe even like guinea pigs and rabbits and chinchillas, animals that will respond to toys and you can train them and they're quite active, you're not necessarily going to get that from a leopard gecko. They aren't pets to be played with, and thinking about it, I'm not sure if there are many reptiles that really play. Maybe an iguana or like a tegu might respond to a toy. I have heard like tegus are like dogs. I don't know. Let me know below if you own any of these or you know a reptile that is quite playful. But leopard geckos, you know, when you get them out, they go hand to hand, they go up your arm, they go behind your neck. And I feel like I'm making them out to sound very boring. Obviously, I don't think so. I've had them years. I love them very much. But to someone who's expecting this animal that they're going to get and they're going to play with, and they could suddenly have this like hit of reality where they're like, oh, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't want to play. And it's like, no. But if you do want to know about things you can do to keep your leopard gecko entertained, I do actually have a video on that, so you can check that out. I'll link that here and below. And the final reason I could think of, and if you think I've missed something out, let me know below. This list has been difficult to make, but the last one I could think of, and this could be applied to just owning reptiles in general, is that they require electricity. Like, depending on where you live, that can get expensive. Now, I've never actually worked out how much it costs to run all 6 of my gecko tanks, but if you have to keep heating on 24 hours a day, you might want to provide a light or something. That could potentially get pricey, and if you're a child trying to convince your parents and your parents have to pay those bills, that could be a difficult conversation. I will say I don't think that one leopard gecko tank really costs that much to run, but to some people, keeping your electric on all the time could put them off, especially if you live in a place where your electric frequently goes out, especially in winter. You will need a generator, though I'm sure you probably have one by now. But yeah, electricity can be a deal breaker, especially if you're used to pets, normally mammals, that don't necessarily require things being plugged in for them 24/7. So that could be a deal breaker for you. But yeah, that was my list. It was difficult to make because, as I said, like, I love leopard geckos. I've been doing this so long, like owning them, that I don't even really see any negative in them at all. I'm just trying to think, like, what would a new owner experience that they're not used to already? Because if you think about it, I'm 26, Gizmo's 13, I've had her half my life. Like, half my life has been ruled by geckos, and I'm totally fine with that. But I'm very used to that way of life, if that makes sense. And if you're just coming into owning a leopard gecko, you might not necessarily thought of these things. So I just wanted to sort of highlight them a little bit. There were things that I wanted to include, but then I didn't know if they really fit. Like, for example, if you've seen my video about cohabbing leopard geckos, it's generally accepted now that you should only really house one in one tank, you know, like not cohab them necessarily. And so that might put people off, but, you know, I didn't know if that was really worth being a whole point of its own. But anyway, I hope you have liked this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you're new here, I make new videos every 4 days and have over 600 videos, that most of them are leopard gecko videos. So if this video, I said video so many times, but if this video hasn't put you off leopard geckos, then be sure to check out those other videos. Too many videos. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. and goodbye.